UFC 299 versus UFC 300. UFC 299 is right around the corner, and this has been a hot topic recently, mainly because UFC 300 was so hyped. But if we're looking at 299, a lot of people are saying this might be better. Now, I wanted to wait to make this video because apparently 300 isn't complete. Dana said it might be 1 or 2 more fights added, but 299 is right around the corner, so if I'm going to make this video, it's got to be now. I'm going to be comparing fights from the main event downwards based on the quality of the matchup, the hype behind it, and the storyline. Then afterwards, I'll do an overall score to kind of base a winner or loser, and then we'll also talk about the gray area as well. Starting with the main events, 299s being headlined by Sean O'Malley and Chito Vera, and 300s being headlined by Pereira and Jamal Hill, of course. We'll start with Sean O'Malley. So the storyline is there. Chito and O'Malley, of course, have a long history. They have beef. It's been going on for years. They fought each other once. It was kind of a controversial ending because Chito hit his perennial nerve, and that kind of, obviously messed up the whole fight because you could say, okay, O'Malley was looking good, but he kind of got a lucky shot. It wasn't like Chito was meaning to hit him in that nerve, but at the end of the day, it's a fight, and that stuff happens. But it's a part of the storyline. It's a part of the drama. It's the reason why Sean O'Malley considers himself undefeated, is because he doesn't consider that first fight with Chito a loss. Now, Pereira and Hill might not be as a hyped up storyline as Chito and Sean, but there's still something there. Jamal Hill beat Glover to win the championship, and Pereira was in Glover's corner. Glover's, of course, Pereira's coach and mentor, so he didn't like to see his guy go down, especially like that. It was a beatdown. And of course, that famous clip went viral where Pereira was staring down Jamal Hill, but Pereira was talking about that after, and he's like, it was kind of like they just slowed it down. He wasn't really staring down Jamal Hill like that. He was just looking at him for like 1 second, and then people slowed it down and then screenshotted it and made it seem more dramatic. But nonetheless, there is something there for Pereira. He wants to get that vengeance for his mentor, of course, and of course, defend his belt. He's never defended a belt yet. Now, in terms of the matchup, I think Pereira Hill is going to be great because Jamal Hill has said, I'm not trying to do no takedowns or do too much grappling. I want to knock this guy out. Now, whether you think that's a good idea or not, it's going to make the fight good. The possible problem is if Jamal Hill is not 100% because he's coming back from an Achilles tear, which is a huge deal. And I don't even think it's been like a full year yet. And the fact that this wasn't even supposed to be 300's main event at all. It's supposed to be 301's main event. And if we look at Chito's past fights, it tells us that he's not going to be shooting on O'Malley a bunch. It's going to be a striking battle. The only problem, though, is that Chito is very slow and has slow starts. And can O'Malley take advantage of that like Corey Sandhagen? I think he can, and it'll make it a fun fight. But it's possible that he, has trouble figuring him out, and it could be a slow start. Ultimately, though, I think it'll be fireworks at the end of the day. If we talk about the hype, the storyline, the matchup, and the fact that we've been waiting for this for a really long time, I got to give the winner to Sean O'Malley versus Chito. Moving on to the co-mains, for 299, we have Porier versus Saint Denis, and for 300, we have Weili versus Xiaonan. Now, I know what everybody's thinking. Everyone's going to say, bro, women's championship fight for a co-main of 300. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. Women's MMA. Come on, bro. And I find it weird, to be honest, because we used to like love women's MMA. I swear people would go crazy, obviously, for Ronda Rousey and the way. Are we like quickly forgetting the Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk? That won the fight of the year. Like, let's not joke. Like, and we have her right here. We have Weili right here. Like, we gotta stop. We gotta chill out with the women's MMA stuff because Weili is about the business. Weili has given us banger after banger, win or lose. Now, you can argue this matchup should have been in a different location. It easily could have headlined UFC China, but at the end of the day, Zhang Weili, championship fight, co-main, I'm loving that. I do think Weili's going to put on a good show, and people shouldn't be complaining about this as the co-main event. But, of course, when you compare it to Dustin Poirier versus Saint Denis, I got to go there. Dustin Poirier, fan favorite, bona fide star, has given us banger after banger as well. And he's going up against a young and up-and-coming star, which we don't see often, especially in lightweight division. Usually the top guys are fighting each other. Dustin is taking a chance and letting Saint Denis come up and give him the opportunity to take him out. And Saint Denis is coming off a knockout victory. He's hot right now. So these two, head to head, it's going to be a certified banger. You got to put it on. You got to put it over Zhang Weili versus Xiaonan. No doubt. I understand that. Okay, now this is where it gets tough. 299, Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page. And 300, Gaethje versus Holloway for the BMF belt. This is a tough one because on one hand, Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page, matchup-wise, is going to be phenomenal, right? We just saw Kevin Holland go against, Wonder Boy with that karate stance as well. Now you're going to have MVP against him. That fight's a banger. This fight's going to be a banger as well. And also, MVP finally coming to the UFC. This is a star-making moment for him. Remember, Michael Chandler, when he came from Bellator to fight Dan Hooker and knocked him out, that blew up Michael Chandler instantly. If MVP comes and starches Kevin Holland, or it gives us a banger, he can be in star category immediately. immediately, especially with his personality, the way he does his branding, right? Everything with him is set up to be a star. You just got to get that first win. You got to make a statement. And these guys put on good fights a lot of the time. A lot of the time. So it's hard to go against them. But then the other hand, on 300, Gaethje Holloway. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? When has Gaethje been in a bad fight? When has Gaethje been in a bad fight? And now it's for like the BMF belt, that status. Max Holloway coming back up. He's been looking jacked as ever on video. I'm like, oh man, here we go. Big Max Holloway is coming, right? He's going to be more prepared than when he went up against Dustin Poirier. But then on the other hand, there's kind of been this narrative of, do we want Max Holloway to go into this fight? Because a lot of people think that he's going to get hurt bad with the leg kicks and with the power of Gaethje, right? Especially with where he's at in his career right now. Right? Holloway is not going to be, Holloway takes a lot of damage a lot of the time. And normally people wouldn't be complaining about that because it's like two guys who are going to go at it. Yeah, we love that. And it's for the BMF belt. Why not? The problem is people love Max, and he actually has a potential chance to fight Poirier for the featherweight belt, the real belt. So this fight potentially could take away that opportunity from Max if he gets really beat down bad. If you just go at face value, I want to go Holloway Gaethje. But with the logistics and potential that it could ruin a future title fight, it makes it harder. Oh, why I gotta choose? Why I gotta choose? I'm gonna go Gaethje Holloway, but it's super close. All right? Again, two great matchups. We have Gilbert Burns versus JDM, and then we have Oliveira versus Tsarukyan. Now, here's what we have to look at. Oliveira is a star. Bona fide star. No matter like where he is, who he's fighting, everybody wants to see Oliveira. The aura and energy that Oliveira brings every time, it's hard to beat. And then on top of that, you put the stakes of the matchup between these two and what that means for the lightweight division. If whoever wins could face Islam Makhachev, that puts even more anticipation on it. The only problem is, could the Gaethje fight get in the way? What if Gaethje gets a win? Does that take away the winner of this fight? Right now, we're getting into the politics of it, and now things are starting to get messy. But if we take that part out, this is amazing. This is exactly what we want in this division for both these guys. Then we go to 299 with Burns and JDM. That's also super exciting. Both these guys, JDM has been on fire lately, right? So it's a fight that a lot of people are going to enjoy probably. But to me, just because of Oliveira, his star power, and potentially him getting that title shot after, I'm going with Oliveira versus Tsarukyan. The stakes, the hype behind Charles, I want to see Charles more than I want to see that fight. I have to be honest. Next up for 299, we have Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. And then for 300, we have Jiri Prochazka versus Rakic. Now, this one is a bit of an easier decision just based on the fact that Yan and Yadong are going to be probably putting on fireworks for multiple rounds. I don't think it's going to end early. I think it's going to be a fun fight back and forth throughout 1, 2, 3 rounds potentially. And these guys have been going back and forth. They actually have some history together. They do have, some beef. For Prochazka and Rakic, it really just seems like a comeback fight for Jiri. And it's going to be a good fight. And Yuri's always exciting to watch. He's never been in a boring fight either. But in terms of hype plus matchup, I'm going with Petr Yan versus Song Yadong at 299. All right, next up for 299, we have Blaydes versus Almeida. And then for 300, we have Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling, the Funk Master. Now, I like the matchup for Blaydes and Almeida. It makes sense for the division. Both guys are trying to get into title contention. The problem is Almeida's last fight was a snooze fest. Like, he did the opposite of make a statement. Like, now I'm just like, I'm not that excited to watch him fight again. Now, obviously, for the rankings and who's going to win, I want to watch it. But in terms of, like, fun and performance, I'm not excited to see Almeida again, at least right now. I'm going to tune in, but not as much as Aljamain Sterling coming up to featherweight against a guy like Calvin Kattar. So the storyline plus the matchup, I'm going with Aljamain Sterling, Calvin Kattar, UFC 300. All right, next up on 299, we have Katlyn versus Maycee Barber, and then we have Bo Nickal and Cody Brundage at UFC 300. Now, this is actually weird because on one hand, I'm not really that excited for Maycee Barber, versus Katlyn. I like Maycee's game. I'm excited to see her, a little bit. But if we look at Bo Nickal, just his storyline, his hype, I'm always going to be interested to see, okay, where's he at now? Where's he at now? Let's see how much he improves. Where's he getting to, right? What's he going to say after the fight? How fast is he going to climb, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem, and if you just look at the odds, which I think these odds are crazy. Minus 1450. Like, I don't think the odds should be at that. But if you have odds like that also, when it's someone's that big of a favorite and you have that mentality of, oh, they're going to win anyways. That kind of takes away the fun of wanting to watch the fight. But that being said, the more interesting story is Bo Nickal, right? So I'd rather see Bo Nickal than Maycee Barber and Katlyn. Now we continue down. 299 has Gamrot versus Dos Anjos. And then we have Figueiredo versus Garbrandt at UFC 300. Just from a fan excitement standpoint, the cult fan base that Garbrandt has, and then Figueiredo at bantamweight, like this is to me, it's a guaranteed banger. Guaranteed banger. It's going to be crazy. I'm super excited for this fight from a viewing standpoint, and it's so low on the card. That's crazy. Now for Gamrot and Dos Anjos, it's a good fight, but let's be honest, just from a brand name standpoint, from a fight style standpoint, it's hard to beat Figueiredo versus Garbrandt. So I got to give 300 the nod again with Davis and Figueiredo against Cody Garbrandt. All right, next up, Munhoz versus Phillips at 299 and Holm versus Harrison in her debut at UFC 300. Now, if we're talking storyline and potential, Kayla Harrison versus Holly Holm is a much more important fight in the UFC, especially in the bantamweight division that needs some spark, that needs some life in it. This is great timing in terms of that. But in terms of Kayla's timing, I wish she came sooner. The other problem is I genuinely don't think Kayla's going to make weight. That's my personal opinion. I know they did some test, and that test, something that Aljamain Sterling even mentioned, it's just a test where they look at your body and see if you can make 135 healthily. But that doesn't actually mean that she literally went down to 135 as a test. She didn't. So my thing is that this fight might not even happen. But let's say it does. It's a super intriguing matchup. Now, is it going to deliver in terms of excitement? I don't know. And, a lot of people say no. But the storyline and importance of this fight is there. But then you look at Munhoz versus Phillips, and that's more guaranteed just to be a more fun and exciting fight. So it's tough because it's like storyline and potential and importance versus just a good matchup, right? And it's like, how do I pick there? If I'm being honest, I'm more interested in the Holly Holm Harrison fight. That's me personally. I know a lot of people don't feel that way, but me personally, I'm more interested in that because of what's at stake, because of the story behind it. Next up, we have Cutelaba versus Lins at 299, and then we have Sodiq Yusuff versus Diego Lopes at 300. To me, it's a no-brainer. Diego Lopes, baby! Diego Lopes, the hype behind him, how much fun that he brings, and the matchup itself, all combined, to me, no-brainer, definitely beats Cutelaba versus Lins. So UFC 300 is going to take that. Next up for 299, Michelle Pereira versus Nickal Oleksiejczuk. And then for 300, we have Jessica Andrade versus Marina Rodriguez. A lot of people were talking smack about Andrade versus Rodriguez, but that's a good fight. And Andrade has always been fun to watch. Now, Michelle Pereira is super fun to watch. He's exciting. But if I go matchup for matchup, I'm taking Andrade versus Rodriguez. Next up for 299, we have Blaydes de Spain versus Josh Parisian. And then we have for 300, Bobby Green versus Jim Miller. And that's the last fight right now for UFC 300. Green versus Miller is fantastic matchmaking, and it's going to be super fun to watch. Guaranteed. Guaranteed fun. Blaydes de Spain, if you don't know him, it's super interesting. He is literally massive, like ginormous. His wingspan, I think, might be the biggest wingspan in the UFC. He's a huge guy, a Taekwondo guy, a medalist in the Olympics. Seeing him in his debut is going to be extremely fascinating, and I really want to watch that fight. If we go matchup for matchup, it's obviously Green versus Miller, but the potential and the story behind Despain, I'm actually going to go with Despain versus Josh Parisian. I've been following it for a bit, and maybe because of that, but maybe if you weren't following, you just pick Green versus Miller. Classic veteran bout. So that's it for UFC 300, and the final score as of right now is 7-4, but UFC 299 has two more matchups. First up is CJ Vergara versus Almabayev. CJ's fun to watch, and it's a good early fight. And then you have Joanne Wood versus Marina Moroz. And if you talk about the women MMA matchups between 299 and 300, obviously UFC 300 is way better. So I don't know, the people that are complaining about the women's MMA fights and UFC 300, those people aren't complaining about UFC 299. And I don't know what that reason is, especially because the 300 ones have stakes and they're exciting fights. Now, here's the thing. I know it's 7-4, but it could easily be 5-4 in favor of 300, or you can go the other way around, 5-4 for 299. Because a couple of the picks that I made, even for me, were super close. So it's really just up to your preference, what you pick for those matchups. So I gave more matchups in favor of 300 than 299. But does that mean 300 is a better card? In my opinion, if you look at the whole thing as a whole package, UFC 300 to me has no misses. There's no misses in terms of not just matchups, but the intrigue behind it and the storylines and excitement and everything. But 299, in terms of which important fights are better, which championship fights are better, which, highly anticipated matchups are better, you could give the favor to 299 in that sense. At the top end, you could say because of the O'Malley Chito fight, Porier, St. Denis, Kevin Holland MVP, right? You could say the big fights at 299 are better than the big fights at UFC 300, and you could say that's why 299 is better than 300. For me personally, the overall card of 300 is better than 299, but the hype fights for 299 versus the hype fights of 300, that is where it gets tough. And you could easily argue 299. But overall, we're getting back-to-back insanely stacked cards. Insanely stacked. So we can't be taking it for granted. We got to sit back, watch, and enjoy the ride. Which card are you most excited to watch? Which fight are you most excited to watch? Let me know. Appreciate you for watching. Peace out.